Hi, my name is Mark Widgery. I'm a GP and one of the MedLink co-founders, and I'd like a few minutes to show you around how MedLink can help you automate the CVD Risk DES for practices in Scotland using vision. Just a little bit of background: the CVD Risk DES is running until February 2026 and is aimed to gather information from patients to establish their overall cardiovascular risk. It's a lucrative process. The payment is £95 per completed assessment, and it's designed to target patients who live in areas of high deprivation. The risk assessment itself involves questions asked of patients, as well as bloods and blood pressure check, a risk score calculation and follow-up. And MedLink aims to automate that to a greater degree as possible for practices to help deliver this service both efficiently and effectively. And so this slide just shows some of the steps involved in the process and how we can complete that for you in terms of identifying patients, inviting them, gathering the questionnaire data from patients, arranging blood test appointments, and then carrying out the risk assessment and coding that data all to the record and following up with patients. The escrow tool is available to you, provided by NHS Scotland, and what we do is get you to run that escrow tool to generate a list of your patients based on their SIMD, the deprivation score classification. You upload that to our system to tell us the patients, and each practice has a capped number of assessments that you're able to claim for, as you can see in the top right there. In terms of setup, you just have to select whether you want A1C or fasting glucose as part of the assessment, depending on your local service. And there's a contractual addendum which needs to be signed for setup. And then you need to set up what we call physical checks, and this is the way to arrange the appointment. And you can do this either by giving patients instructions, for example, to contact your local CTAC service, or you can configure self-book appointments for patients to book directly into an appropriate slot that you've created in your vision appointment book. So that's the initial setup process. Once that setup is done, we run the service in the background for you automatically. First of all, we send out invites. We do that to send out those invites to patients based using the data we pull out of Vision, either an email address or a mobile phone number. The majority of patients will be receiving a text message invite, which will contain a link that they just tap on to load directly into the questionnaire. At the same time as we send out that invite, we code the invite to the Vision record for that patient, showing the fact that they've been invited and what needs to be arranged for that patient so that your staff are aware as well. So from a patient perspective, they receive that invite, and if they choose to engage, they tap on that link inside the text message. It loads directly on their phone. They can also do this on a tablet or on their computer. And the questionnaire itself is a brief questionnaire allowing them to answer the important questions in terms of establishing cardiovascular risk. So their weight and height. They have the option to submit a waist circumference as well, but that's not a necessary part of it. Their family history and also their smoking status. Once they've completed that questionnaire, they're then prompted to make their follow-up CVD risk appointment, and that can either be, depending on the settings that we saw earlier, through an online booking option or by calling up the surgery or your CTAC service. And so once they've arranged that appointment, then they attend. They require a blood pressure check at the appointment, the waist circumference if it's not already been submitted by them personally, and the blood tests, lipids, A1C or fasting glucose, depending on your settings. Although you receive the questionnaire responses straight away into the MedLink inbox, the system looks for those results coming in and shows them as pending until they're actually available. And so you know that when you log into the inbox and look at the completed results, you've got a full data set with all of the risk scores calculated to be able to make those risk assessments completed. In terms of the risk assessment itself, this is the one part of the process that we can't automate on your behalf, which is actually carrying out that risk assessment and deciding the follow-up. What we can do is give you all of the relevant data. This is what that looks like inside the MedLink inbox. And if we just zoom in on one of the sections here, you can see the physical check results have been pulled directly out of the Vision record into the inbox for easy interpretation. You've got the blood pressure there, in this case the fasting glucose result or the A1C, depending on which one you've selected, and the lipid results. We've got total cholesterol there as well as HDL in the background as part of the calculation, and the patient's waist circumference. We also pull out of the record previous data for comparison purposes for clinical interpretation as well. Below that, you have the answers to the patient's questionnaire, their family history, their smoking status. And importantly, down at the bottom there, you can see the scores are calculated automatically inside the MedLink system. Both the assigned score, which is the critical one in terms of cardiovascular risk, and the Diabetes UK risk score, both of which are needed for completion of the assessment and for payment. Below that, we've got all of the completion codes as well: lifestyle counselling, the cardiovascular risk assessment itself, and also the CVD prevention code, and we'll see in a second how those codes are completed within the MedLink system. Because as well as the data that you've gathered here, we have the facility for you to follow up with your patients with some useful data for the patients and links to further information. So it's designed as a complete one-stop shop cardiovascular risk assessment process. So these are the actions that you can take as a clinician once you've looked at the data. The first thing you can do is you can send a message to the patient. For many patients, this may be the main thing that you need to do. This is for patients who are low risk, where there are no cause for concern with all of the answers and the physical checks, and also a lower sign score below 10%. It may be that you can write a template for these patients like this one. Many thanks for completing your assessment, and following up with the patient either by text or by email. You can add your own attachments to this. What we've done is created a CVD risk results attachment that goes automatically populated and that is sent with the patient message. It contains all of the patient results, their blood pressure, their BMI, and their blood results, along with interpretation, brief text, and links to further information. That same document also contains lifestyle advice for patients, again with brief text inside the document and links to further information on the NHS Inform website. If you do need to follow up with a patient, let's say the sign score is high or there's some other cause for concern that you want to follow up with, you can do that directly with the patient and allow them to book into an appointment online. So for example, you could create a face-to-face follow-up appointment message template, and then you could actually routinely add an appointment type for them to follow up with you or with your staff. And the CVD Risk DES encourages innovative ways of working, so this may be things like online consultations or group consultations for patients to be able to explore their cardiovascular risk and things that interventions they might want to consider as part of that process. And so once that risk assessment is complete, then your staff, as you saw in that screen before, can click File to Clinical Record. And once that is done, all of the data that you've seen in that screen is filed directly into the Vision record. That contains all of the patient's answers, as well as the scores that are necessary for payment, so the assigned score and the Diabetes UK score, the lifestyle advice code, and the primary prevention of CVD code, as well as the CVD risk assessment completed. As well as all of that being written to the data, the patient follow-up message is sent with the text that you've composed, their results, and also the lifestyle advice sent directly to them. So the question is, why use MedLink? How can MedLink help you deliver this service? Well, what we've aimed to do is to automate the system in its entirety for you, so that there is very little administrative work left to do, and that the clinical work can be done very, very efficiently. Once the system is set up and the invites, the escrow list is uploaded, the invites get sent out automatically, and we can ensure a full data collection for all of your patients to ensure that everything they need is there. It's very easy to create appointments, either by instructing patients or with online service, and we make it very clear what's required in that appointment. And all of the calculations that are required are done automatically. Similarly, the patient results and advice is generated automatically and can be sent to patients very easily as part of that follow-up. And importantly, we ensure robust coding so that every code that you require for the CVD risk assessment is completed and therefore is eligible for payment. Importantly, we're able to monitor the cap that you have as a practice, so we can run the invite process automatically in the background and actually bring that to an end once your cap is reached, to make sure that there is no unfunded work that is generated. To cover the costs of us delivering and developing this service, we charge a standard rate of £15 per completed assessment, which represents about 16% of the total practice revenue. We hope that's a reflection of the work that we've done, and also still makes it a very efficient way for you to deliver the service and to generate that revenue, whilst also delivering a very meaningful and useful risk assessment for your patients. If you'd like to see more information about the MedLink product generally, please feel free to visit our website, medlink.co.uk, and communication details there, info@medlink.co.uk if you'd like to get in touch. I hope you find this a helpful service, and we look forward to helping you deliver the CVD Risk DES efficiently and effectively. Thank you very much.